Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Appreciate your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. We're moving forward. We're less than 200 now. Fewer than two. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, if my mother was here, she'd be very disappointed that I don't get this right. Less than 200 subscribers to 12,000, which we want to hit before opening day, May 17th of the WNBA. Let's move on. I want to talk about attendance and viewership because we finally got ratings for Paige Bueckers' debut, as well as Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky versus Brazil. So I want to talk about that a little bit, especially considering how much we heard about how popular Paige Bueckers is, that she's a mover, she's a shaker, she's moving the needle. She was the one, as Nike said on draft night with their T-shirt. She was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. Nike still hasn't put out anything. They never put out anything for Caitlin Clark, even playing in Iowa. But let's dig in now before we get quite into the numbers, because I thought this was interesting. I almost did a video on this, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it's worth a video, but now it is interesting. The one thing I want to talk about, because this from Axios talking about the WNBA preseason and it's making historic waves. We talked about how, getting televised, and then all the games getting televised, which is a first, and so on and so forth, which is absolutely true. Of course, we know it's all about Caitlin Clark. Now, they are going into all of the numbers and all the increases everywhere that sound great. And of course, I love this. I just had to point this out because I know you all will appreciate this. What we're hearing as now, remember, these games are all televised because of Caitlin Clark. As momentum behind women's sports continues to build, players like Paige Bueckers, Asia Wilson, and yes, finally, Caitlin Clark are driving record-breaking demand with the highest preseason sales in StubHub's history for the league. StubHub spokesman Adam Widelli told Axios. So now that we have some numbers, we can talk about the truth of that statement or the falsity of that statement. And I think StubHub spokesperson knew this was false before even putting it out. So let's dig into these numbers. But you see what they did there, right? All of these games are being televised because of Caitlin Clark, but they're going to say Paige Bueckers, Asia Wilson, and Caitlin Clark. Did you notice they didn't even put Me Too in there? They didn't even put that you all watching because of Me Too. Oh, there's reality check. So let's take a quick look. Now, this is Sky Links last night. Okay, so this isn't the Brazil game, but we'll get into TV ratings for that. Links Sky. Let's scroll down here a bit to attendance in Chicago, 4,688 to watch Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky take on the Minnesota Lynx. By the way, I just like to point out, because I thought it was kind of interesting, Angel Reese, um, 9 points, 8 rebounds, and yes, she only played 19 minutes, but still. But I thought what was really interesting is they won. The Sky beat the Lynx. Angel Reese and Rachel Banham, who's a -1. Oh no, I'm sorry. We also got one other player. So 3 players, even though they won, you have 3 players in a minus plus minus. Minus in the plus minus category. Angel Reese being one of them at -6. Kia Nurse at a +14. That's kind of wild. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out. No real reason. Um, so yeah, there you go. Less than 5,000 for that game. And this gets kind of wild. This is one of the reasons I want to dig into this. This is a Chicago Sky troll. I don't know. They follow me just to, for harassment. I don't know if they realize they've been on mute for months because they just on and on. But anyway, remember the ticket prices? The ticket prices for the game against Brazil, right? Highest resale ticket price in league history, in the return to Iowa and the sellout. Don't you start talking about ticket prices. Y'all just had a game where 90% of the Fever Arena was empty. 90%, folks. Now they're talking about the first game, where they had over 6,000 in attendance, which is a pretty healthy number. Again, Chicago Sky and Angel Reese under 5,000. But there's the nonsense, there's the narratives, right? They're always going to spew this crap. 90% of the arena, if that were true, there would have been less than 2,000 people there. But let's keep moving on. We can keep moving on. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's massive attendance gap feels telling. 100%. We're going to dig in a little bit. Here you go. The Sky's game against Brazil. Now we just showed you this one against the Lynx was under 5,000. Even against Brazil, this is the one back at LSU, folks. This is the one for Angel Reese. Right? A lot of her fans are saying, "Hey, she needs a statue at LSU." But only 6,373 people, less than half the capacity of the arena showed up and you could get tickets for $20. Meanwhile, the Fever went to Iowa, back to Carver for Caitlin Clark, where they sold out with the highest resale ticket price average ever of $670. But let's get into TV, right? Let's get into TV. Not everyone can afford tickets. Not everyone can afford to travel. Are the students of LSU, are they home? I know some schools are home now. Maybe they couldn't do it. Maybe they couldn't afford the $20. I don't know. But let's go. Now we already know this. We know this part about Caitlin Clark, more than a million. Yeah, 1.3 million, which was more than she actually averaged for regular season games last year. But here's the interesting thing. And we know, it how compared to, I think, only two NBA preseason games. But check this out. Friday, Ion, 406,000 for the Wings Aces. 406,000. Now, again, in general, if you're taking the whole Caitlin Clark effect out of it, yes, that is a decent number overall, and it is a preseason game. However, Caitlin Clark, 1.3 million. And by the way, this is the wannabe face, right? Asia Wilson, the wannabe face. Nike just dropped her shoe. I think they made like 32 pair or something. No, it was about 3,000, which is still weird. But and Paige Bueckers. Paige was Caitlin before Caitlin, right? Paige just made another whole speech about how, she wants to, I don't even know how to phrase it without getting in trouble, and just trying to make a joke out of her nonsensical comments about the uplifting the black women in the league. Um, like I say, then she should give up her spot to a black woman. She should give up her endorsements to a black. I'm sick of this nonsense. This pandering BS. Paige just doesn't want to get beat up. She even switched sides in case that would help. But anyway, she is the one, as Nike said on draft night, right, with their T-shirt. And yet that debut was only 406,000. You had Paige Bueckers versus Asia Wilson, drew 406,000. Oh, and the Sky versus Brazil, where Caitlin Clark got 1.3 million in ESPN. It drew less than half a capacity at LSU for Angel Reese, 305,000. Now, to be fair, as I always do, you say, well, that is ESPN compared to Ion, if we're looking at the ratings. Yeah, absolutely it is. So let's take a look at this. WNBA on Ion, 7 games last year with more than 1 million viewers on Ion. They all were the Indiana Fever, 1.6, 1.34 million, 1.26, 1.22, 1.2, 1.8, and 1.02 million. And I think we all know, if the Indiana Fever game had been on Ion, Caitlin Clark fans, Indiana Fever fans, they would have found it and they would have tuned in. But Angel Reese's fans are following on IG. They're following her for her PGOF material, hoping for eventually to, move up to the real deal. But that is why they, and by the way, one more thing I just thought that I would point out, as far as live attendance for Wings Aces. Again, this is the face, Asia Wilson dropping her shoe against the one, the face versus the one that drew 406,000 on TV, has drawn, I got to get to it now, of course. I love how it doesn't, it didn't load the whole page. That's always fun. Here we go. 7,602. 7,602. That is what the Aces, the face versus the debut of the one, 7,600 in attendance. So y'all can stop telling me about how Caitlin Clark isn't it. Caitlin Clark isn't the one. Caitlin Clark's not the face of the league, and he can lie about the attendance and all that. But here are the numbers for you, freaks. Here are the numbers for you. I was gonna say freaks and geeks, but that sounds like I might be complimenting him because that was a lot of people love that show, even though it wasn't around very long. But yeah, so here's the deal. And again, one thing I want to point out about this is the WNBA has to get in their heads is this is a huge problem for the league. They got the CBA coming up, and they're just reconfirming here that it's all Caitlin Clark. You cannot build a league. Yes, you can use a player like Caitlin Clark to grow the league, but in the way they're doing it, you can't have long-term success if it's just the one player. And the league doesn't seem to understand that yet in the way they handle marketing and everything. Although, quick shout out, whomever they hired, they obviously hired someone new for their socials, WNBA for their socials because they put out more pro Caitlin Clark stuff in the last couple of days than they did all of last season. But I'm curious what y'all think about these numbers. Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate you checking out this video. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. We are bound and determined to hit 12 by May 17th. Um, last few days have been great. Uh, Despite the migraine, the last few days have been great. Really appreciate everyone tuning in and all that. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I will talk to you later. Go have the day you deserve.